This episode of After Dark is sponsored by Shutterstock.com. With over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code Gamebreaker5. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Tuesday night, the After Dark, the live call-in show where you guys call in and ask your questions live. We answer them right here on the spot. We couldn't make the show without you, so guys, if you haven't checked it out live, please, please, please come check us out on Tuesday nights and hit us up on Skype. All you guys got to do is hit us up on the username GB After Dark, and we can make your questions a reality. Tonight, joining me like he always does, I'm only going to be able to say that for the next 3 weeks. So I'm going to take advantage of it. The one, the only, Mr. Josh Allen.
Hello.
Hello, sir. How's it going?
Yes.
Yes? Are we really going to do this again? Are we really getting the Blizzard answers again?
What? No, Blizzard never says yes.
Oh, that's true. That's very
say.
true. Wow, I'm just all over the place with lower thirds. That's very, very true, sir. That's all right. I've got a couple Blizzard questions waiting in my pocket with Twitter. If we get to them, then I'm going to throw your way since I'm going to try my best to get all the answers we can out of you before you are legally bound by contract. Or are you already legally bound by contract?
I am not yet, no.
That
is an important thing to remember, is that I'm currently not speaking on behalf of Blizzard Entertainment. So.
All right.
Yeah.
But we can still try and get your Blizzard employee intuition before it's too late. We'll see if we get to those questions. But obviously this show is about you guys, your calls, your questions. Let's just jump right into it with a Twitter question from an avid fan. Mike Schaffnitz tweeted this question over to me. He wanted to know, with the announcement of the Twitch app for Xbox 360, does this mean you could see direct integration with the new Xbox? Man, that Mike Schaffnitz, one smart cookie, if I might say so. Just throwing that out there. You seem to be ahead of your time. You seem to be on it. Josh, this is something I want to talk about before we get into this, because I think this is something that was interesting. I got this email today that basically said the Xbox 360 is getting a Twitch app, which is really exciting, I think. I was talking to a friend of mine who built this whole like arm contraption by the side of his bed to hold his iPad so that he could watch Twitch from his bed. But now with the integration into Xbox, it's going to be a lot simpler. You don't have to be a MacGyver. Could this mean? I mean, we know that PlayStation.
$20. I'm just pointing this out. This was $20. This is all you need. I do the same thing.
But is this
anyway.
This is something I think that points more. I mean, it's very exciting. I think that Xbox is getting Twitch, but that's not, I think, what the real thing here is. I think the exciting part is when we saw the announcement for PlayStation, we heard that they're getting Ustream integration. And I think a lot of people were excited by that announcement, but I think that at the same time, a lot of questions were raised as to why Ustream. Why did that deal get made? And people have been making the assumption that Xbox might have stolen the rights to the Twitch integration into their new Xbox. And I think personally that us seeing this app, well, not the nail in the coffin. I think it's a little bit of a hint in the right direction.
I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that perhaps Twitch has had discussions with Microsoft about that sort of thing. Don't necessarily think that the Twitch app is one of them. This is something that it's been rumored to be in development for a long time, and I think it's something that they were actually talking about a long time ago. They were saying, "Oh, we've got this new, we're working on this new thing with the Xbox and the Xbox 360." That was like a site redesign ago. Like that was when Twitch came out with their last layout before the one that they're using now. As people were saying, "Oh, that's because they're working on this thing for the Xbox 360." So that's something that's been around for a while. I've also heard mixed reviews of the. I haven't checked it out yet myself, but I've heard mixed reviews of the Twitch app. on the Xbox 360. Just that like things like you can't actually look at the chat while you're on it, or there's like no way to search on it apparently, stuff like that. So I don't know how I really know how I feel about this thing overall. I would obviously like to see if they're going to try and get more like console gamers into live streaming, then obviously it would be great for Twitch to be on the Xbox. But
I mean, I
if
think
I don't know.
I see this kind of as a viewing platform. I mean, obviously a big part of Twitch is, as even our chat room will tell you, is half the fun is the live shows to enjoy the experience. But I think we a big discussion for a long time is televised esports, and this is one way that they're kind of bringing it that way and making it more accessible to the non-computer savvy. I think this is interesting. I wonder if it'll lead into the Xbox, and obviously we won't know. I don't want to stay on this question too long because this is obviously my question that I loaded into the show. But I think it's
really?
interesting.
You're Mike Shafted on Twitter?
Shh.
Wow.
You don't even ask me how much I had to pay to get that Twitter handle because it was taken. I had to pay a lot for it. No, I'm kidding. But I also brought it up because we had this other question that came in from Sorin who asked, what's the one thing that Microsoft could say about the Xbox that will make you totally forget about the PS4? And that announcement is obviously coming up later this month, and I think like a week or two. Really? Nothing? You don't think there's anything the Xbox can do to make you forget about what the PS4 has coming up? Or do you think that it's just something? Are you saying that it's standard of you will never forget about PlayStation? Or
I will not. There is nothing that Microsoft could do that would make me say I'm just not going to pay any attention to the PlayStation anymore. That's why would I do that? Under what circumstances would I no longer express interest in an entire console? I think that's kind of short-sighted.
Well, what about scaling back their question and saying what could they announce that eclipses what PlayStation announced? Because honestly, I don't think a lot of people were. I don't want to say people were less than impressed, but I think people were kind of underwhelmed with what Sony came to the press conference with. They didn't really see anything that was crazy that they were like, oh my gosh, this is next gen.
For me, you can talk specs all day. You can talk about all these different, these like live streaming integration stuff. You could talk about cloud content. You could talk about all that stuff until you're blue in the face. And I just don't care. For me, it's about the games. What am I going to be able to play once I've got my hands on the controller? That's all that matters for me. If Xbox comes out and has a whole
Bungie could come out and be like, look, we got this partnership. We've got this really awesome game that we're working on. Be on the lookout at E3 this year. Thanks. That's all I'm saying. It'd perk my ears up a little bit. But for me, it's just like, I'm not going to make a decision to focus on one or the other until I know what games are going to be on it. And if there's something that comes along, like I wasn't really interested in a PS3 until Uncharted came out. And then I was like, holy crap, this game looks awesome. I want to play this. And then I never got a PS3 anyway. But still, like that was when I really started actually paying attention to the PS3. Otherwise, I just like everything that I wanted was on Xbox. I was like, okay, well, there's these exclusives for Xbox, and there's cross-platform games for Xbox, and there wasn't really anything on the PS3 up until Uncharted that I was really all that excited about actually playing. So that's the sort of thing that I'm looking at here. Is when they come out and they say, here's all these specs. Here's how you're gonna. This is our next gen console. It can push so many polygons per minute and stuff like that. I don't care about any of that. What I want to know is what games are going to be on it, and are those games going to be exclusive to one console or the other? That's all that really matters to me. All right. Well, I know I didn't give an answer. However, I do want to move on and get to your guys' calls, so I'm gonna cut it short right there. Caller, you're online with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. Tell us your question.
Hi, my name is Daniel Castelli. I'm from Bellingham, Washington. And I kind of have a question about like MOBAs in general. And just like this was from like a recent example. I play a lot of Smite, and they just released a god called like Fenrir, and he's like an assassin type, and he does a lot of burst damage. And immediately, like whenever like a new god or like champions release, everybody carries like, oh yeah, this person is OP, they should nerf it. But they didn't, I think. But then like a very quickly like meta was developed against this thing. So this kind of raised the question in my mind, like, what is the difference between a god that's truly OP for champion and when no meta is developed yet? Like, how do you define the difference?
Well, I think, and tell me if you've seen this, I feel like with any multiplayer game, when something new is introduced, a lot of people, look at Death Knights. Everybody immediately jumped on the bandwagon and said Death Knights were overpowered. And sure, they might have been a little stronger at the beginning of their inception, but I think that they were just more misunderstood. And especially with any game out there, any MOBA, it's heavily based on strategy, how you utilize your kit versus the enemy's kit. And with something like champions, something like this Fenrir, me personally, I don't play as much Smite to have been in the situation, but do you think it's potentially people just not understanding maybe how to counter him yet? Or are his abilities really that kind of overpowered where they're one-shotting people?
It's a bit of both. I mean, very, very quickly I realized his main like powerful attack is movement-based ability. And in Smite, you have this thing called cripple, where a lot of other gods' abilities cripple and don't allow movement-based abilities. So by like just throwing out a whirlpool, you practically negated the Fenrir for a little bit, and he can focus him down. He has low defense. So yeah, I mean, like, this is like one thing. There's like a meta for like this one, so that kind of like rules out the idea of like he is kind of OP, but maybe like he needs balancing. I don't know. High res is weird with their balancing. Like they're like,
Yeah.
We'll kind of tweak just a bit, but they're not like super on top of it.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when you started talking about a Smite god that was overpowered at release, and I was like, you mean like all of them? Because it's kind of been a trend with higher. That's kind of what started to push me away from the game a little bit. Like I remember, this is a while ago, but like back during beta, like Guan Yu came out, and he was ridiculous. And like I would play him and just go like 20-0 every single game with no contest whatsoever. I would just dominate with him, and then he got nerfed. And then I don't remember the name of the dude that came out after him. The one that like ate things and then spit them back up later, and he was just absolutely dominating for a little while, and he ended up getting nerfed too. And that seems to kind of be Hi-Rez's MO with Smite, is release something and make sure you don't release it underpowered. Always make sure it's either overpowered or just really good at release. They can't ever come out with a new champion that's underpowered, because then they won't.
It's a god. It's gotta feel godly.
Right. And I mean, we see that happen in all the MOBAs, really. Like, from time to time, there'll be a new League of Legends champion that comes out that's just really, really super overpowered and stuff like that, and they usually end up getting scaled back there as well. And part of it is the sort of metagame, like what you're talking about, where sometimes like a champion will first come out and people just have no idea how to deal with this sort of thing. Like, this is different from what I've had to do before. This is what is wrong with this. But every once in a while, one will come out where it actually just is too strong. Like, it actually just is overpowered, right, when it comes out. Hi-Rez has typically been less than impressive with their balance in the past, so I would not be surprised. And this is kind of what it comes down to at that point. It's something where you can't really guess what the balance is going to be and how the metagame is going to progress right away, because that's the sort of thing that takes time. It takes an amount of the passage of time for people to look at it and figure it out and go, oh, okay, well, if we try this, then this comes different. Oh, what do you mean? If we have everybody build this item on the other team, then suddenly he doesn't matter anymore, stuff like that. That's the sort of thing that it takes a little while for people to figure out, so that's why it kind of just comes down to how much do you trust the company. And Riot has typically been pretty good for the most part. There's some outliers in League of Legends, to the point that usually when a new champion comes out, if it is overpowered, people can kind of go, oh yeah, that's just going to get nerfed. Hi-Rez I've kind of had the opposite experience with, where it's like, okay, that's going to be overpowered, and it's just going to be overpowered until something more overpowered comes out. And that's just how that works there. So it does kind of just come down to how much you really trust the developer and the people behind the designers to actually balance things out.
I don't want to throw blame on Hi-Rez here, or any situation, but is that just poor beta development, or is that just because we've seen this with other games where they just don't have the sample size or the expectations to think about the ways millions of players are going to end up using these champions or fight these encounters, and they just don't have the sight there until it actually gets out to the public's eye, and they have a way to understand how players are going to play. Because I mean, that could be a simple. Go ahead.
If it's like the first like 5 or 6 times that happens, then yeah. But they seem to be having trouble learning from that as time goes on, and they continue to put like this. Again, this is part of why I don't play Smite so much anymore, is because this just kept happening, and every time a new champion came out, the game was unplayable until they balanced it. And it's just kind of something where it's like, all right, I see what you guys are doing here. You're just not picking up on how to balance. So
it's a good marketing model, as Kara, our person who works the Skype's lines, pointed out. You know, make the champion overpowered at first, so everybody wants it, and they put forth the money to buy it, and then balance it after they purchased it.
I don't know that I would call that a good marketing strategy, because it just means that people don't want to play your game anymore before too long. But yeah,
it's good to the person who's only running the numbers, not to the person who understands at all. All right, let's open up the lines and keep this show moving. Caller on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. Tell us your question.
Hi, it's Spacebar from the chat room.
Hey, Spacebar. I don't know what your question's going to be, but I know I want to hear it.
I guess so. First off, Josh Allen, congrats in Blizzard.
No, that was last week. Stop it. He doesn't get any more congratulations. The moment's passed. It's been 2 weeks.
You shush. He's earned it. Congrats, Josh. Well
Thank
done,
you.
sir.
Mostly for the shushing of the Mike Shaftman. I appreciate that.
I know.
I'm just jealous. It's jealousy.
So my question, I know you were involved in this Shaftnet, but and you said, was it you that asked it, or you asked it if
I mentioned something on Twitter.
Yeah, you mentioned that if adults appreciate RPG music more now, or
well, I think what I said on Twitter was that I wish I could go back to the era where I was able to appreciate and kind of immerse myself in a video game on the music, like the music that I was playing Mega Man just before the show went off, and like it's iconic. People know what that is, and I don't think that, I mean, that does exist with some games, but I don't think it's as prevalent in gaming anymore as much as it used to be. Especially because I think that the gaming world has changed, where it heavily relied on its music because the graphics were under standard, that they relied heavily on the music, and now as graphics have picked up, music in some cases is a afterthought.
Did Spacebar just call in to ask a question for Mike Shaftman? Is that what just happened?
I said something on Twitter, and then he said he would call in with a question about it. I thought there was going to be more to it.
No, well, there are some games now that have music. Like recently, Hitman Absolution had Ave Maria as an opening title, and then now there's a bunch of others.
What do you guys think about video game music right now then? I mean, do you have any thoughts? I mean, obviously, like I said, I think there's some that stand out. The Uncharted soundtrack, I think, is really good. I don't know, you can't count Kingdom Hearts anymore. I think without just sitting and trying to take time to be lost in thought, I think there are games out there that have it. But what do you guys think about the difference in terms of the era of where music and game development are at? Do you think they're in different places now?
I think there's lots of games that come out with really, really good music still. Someone in the chat room, XP Shadow in the chat room, just mentioned Bastion. Had a great soundtrack. Zombies has a great soundtrack. There's lots of these little more indie games that are really, really coming out with amazing, like even a freaking Hexagon, which is the simplest, most difficult, most frustrating game I've ever played in my entire life, has amazing music that goes with it. That's
exactly what I'm getting at, because we're seeing these developers abandon where gaming has gone. Even Blizzard, when they were mentioning Hearthstone, said that they wanted to bring something back to life that was back from the garage developer days. And we're seeing massive people leave these huge companies and go develop indie games. And even though these games are still coming out, you're talking specifically about these indie games that aren't necessarily the Call of Duties, and I'm not saying that, you know, they need to be, but like their focus is on the experience. Their focus involves picking the right music, not just trying to create these big and flashy games anymore.
I think there's just sort of been a trend in the gaming industry over the past, like, I don't know, like 5 to 10 years where people just sort of forgot about music, and we're starting to see it come back again. We're starting to see more and more games, even big games, like you mentioned Blizzard. The Mists of Pandaria soundtrack is actually fantastic as well. There's lots of very memorable songs that you just bump into while you're out in the world off of that soundtrack as well. I think we're starting to see a sort of resurgence in that, as people are just starting to realize, okay, actually, the music really sets the mood for whether or not the player is enjoying this. If there's a good music track going on in the background, the player is going to enjoy the game more, regardless of whether they're even listening to the music. It's just something that if there's something audibly pleasing, it affects your whole mood in a way that then you're happier about it. And I think if we look back to old games, there's a lot of nostalgia there as well. Like you mentioned, you were pumping some. There was like the Mega Man 2 soundtrack remix or something you were playing.
Yeah, it was
just before the show, and it's like a but like with a freaking guitar like going crazy.
Oh, those old days.
Yeah.
Well, there's also I forget who mentioned it on Twitch, but there's also the Shatter soundtrack I've heard already, and now there's Faster Than Light soundtrack, and that's just blows my mind at what the indie developers can do with music. And then, like you said, Josh, like there's some games don't have the soundtrack, and it's still just as good. But you know, sometimes you just need to have that music in it and get immersed all over again. I kind of miss that.
I mean, I think it's definitely a nostalgia thing and an era thing. There's a different era of music out there now. For me, I think it's something that's prevalent. Like a station I was also listening to prior to the show going live is just Nobuo Uematsu, and it's just I just find it funny. It's like all of the tracks that come up on just a game station on Pandora that I themed around just video games was the idea. All of them come from my childhood. Nothing has been placed in there from this era. And it's not that, and I don't think that they're not out there. I just wonder why maybe they're not sticking, or maybe just in terms of stuff like Pandora, they're not mixing because they're considered different things. I don't know. But I just miss it. I don't know. I like video game music. I as a child got sound OSTs and fell asleep to them because I like them that much, and I miss that.
I think there's lots of great music in games nowadays, and there's probably a lot of nostalgia going along in there too. Because like people in the chat right now are talking about the Guild Wars 2 theme. That is a very, very strong theme to it. It's very, very enjoyable. Skyrim is another game that had an incredibly awesome theme. The new Tomb Raider game that just came out has some really awesome music to it. There's tons of these like Mass Effect series has had really, really good music as well. There's tons of games that have this really, really awesome music. It's not chiptunes, and it's not something that you grew up on. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think that video game music is just bad nowadays. I think there was a while where people kind of ignored it, but that's starting to come back again. And there's some recent titles that have really, really good music in them. Yes, that would in fact be the Darkwing Duck theme.
No, Chip and Dale.
Oh, Chip and Dale. Sorry. It got right to the part where I would recognize it.
You were close. Yeah. Wait. Here we go.
They were both on the same day, so.
Yeah, one right after the other. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's there. I don't know. I miss it. Maybe I'm just getting too old at 13. All right, let's open up the lines again. But before we do, let's take a quick break. And just remember out there, for those of you guys who have maybe not tried Netflix yet, we've got an awesome promo going on. Netflix.com/GameBreakerTV. There's so much on there. I know you guys have heard about it 1,000 times, but check it out if you have not. If you guys haven't, if you guys are into some more serious, awesome dramas, right now they've got a Netflix original, House of Cards, which is a great show. Everybody can't stop talking about it. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Arrested Development. I believe the whole entire season of Arrested Development is on there, as well as they're getting a Netflix original 7th season, I believe. A whole bunch of other great shows, movies. But ironically, they're smart enough to pull off Iron Man, both 1 and 2, right around the release date of Iron Man 3. Smart marketing on their part. But yeah, Netflix.com/Gamebreaker TV, guys. Please go check it out if you have not already. This next question brought to you guys by Netflix. So of course you know what that means. It is a time for Eduardo's Corner. Eduardo, great to have you back. Great to have you on. Not even going to introduce you. Well, I just did. Not even going to ask you your name or your question. Just going to bring you on and start talking. How you been?
Hey guys, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
I'm good.
I'm great. Wee
Okay. What do you got?
Yeah. Okay, well, you know how dating sims are huge in Japan,
Oh no.
but yes, they are.
Yeah, I know they are. I just know where you're going. I don't know where you're going with this question, but I can already tell this is going to get out of hand.
Okay. So, well, they haven't caught on in the West. Well, there are a few good games like Persona and Catherine, but I think that what the Western market needs, it's a dating sim based on a familiar franchise or thing that everybody knows. So would you guys like to see a dating sim based on 50 Shades of Grey?
I hate you.
Oh, come on, it's gonna be awesome. Can you imagine the decision tree, like bite her, spank her, or do the dumb gaze, or dismiss? Oh, oops. I
Really?
think I just destroyed the show.
Really? I don't even know if Josh is coming back. The only reason I came back is because I might have to cut the stream down after that. Oh, no, Josh was just getting a beer. All right. I guess now we can go down this road.
How about, have you played any dating sim?
Josh, have you played any dating sims?
Have I played any dating sims?
They're fascinating.
There was a Flash game I played when I was like 15, so before Mike Shaftnett was born.
It's true.
But no,
I mean,
never really been terribly interested in them.
What do you classify as dating sims? Because I don't know what game it was, but I remember playing something that was similar to the way that they're presented, where it's like pictures in the background and then like it's just like the waist up of a person. But it wasn't like a game where I was trying to date the women in it. It was actually like that was how they were making their story happen. That was how the game was played.
Yeah, there was a game I was playing on my phone not too long ago. It was a baseball game that like had dating sim elements in it, and I was like, that's awfully Japanese of this title. All right, but I don't know. It's just not something that I think I've ever really been terribly interested in. It's like if I want to pick up chicks, I'll just go talk to actual women. I think the difference between it working in the Japan culture and the Western culture is just exactly that. It's cultural differences. I don't know how true this is. I've heard people say that it exists, but you're talking about a culture where there are vending machines to buy women's underwear. And I'm pretty sure it's used women's underwear. If that exists, I understand why dating sims exist, and also why people literally have married the person from their dating sims. I'm not going to make any commentary about that, but I think it's strictly a cultural difference thing as to why they haven't caught on over here. Yeah, it's definitely a very big cultural difference. I think it's the sort of thing that in our culture, you can't talk with your friends about how you were playing this awesome dating sim. They'll just look at you and go, "Go outside."
But I can't talk to girls.
Yeah. No,
What is fascinating about them is that they don't work with any culture. They are made by people who don't know how human brain works.
But there's a huge market for those. Let's not we can't pretend like they don't work. They work. It's huge. It is a genre, and it's I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's a successful genre.
Yes, it is. And well, I've always wanted to make an experiment, like to go to Starbucks or to a mall and just approach random women with quotes from dating sims.
If you make that, can you put that on YouTube? Can we shoot that in a way that it looks like a dating simulator and then put that up on YouTube or something? Because I think that'd be a great video. Josh is holding his hand. I want to do it.
Eduardo's
I think
Day
that
Out.
would be. I think that would be a great video. It'd be awesome. No.
Well, yeah, I have nothing to do this weekend. Maybe I can do something. Get a few friends who know how to do video editing. Get some subtitles in there because I'm in Mexico.
You make it. You make it. I will put it out in the internet world as best as I can. I'll be all over that. I think that'd be great.
Try that one in Southern California. Just have a bet to see how many girls you can actually talk to before you get maced.
That will not end well in Southern California. Women here, single women are the worst.
You just walk up, you're like, "Hey, so I noticed that you were reading. I really like to." Yeah, exactly. Just shot right in the face.
So no, to simply answer your question, Eduardo, no, I don't think I've played any straight up dating simulators. But I don't.
And you don't think that doing one based on 50 Shades of Grey is a good idea? Because it's a very successful franchise.
Sometimes these words that you say cause me so much physical pain.
Why?
Yeah. I got nothing left to talk about that topic. So I think we're gonna let you go, Eduardo. Thanks so much. You always manage to keep the show interesting. Every time I don't think we can get a more crazy question out of you, you come up with questions that make Josh and I literally walk out of our chairs for 30 seconds and leave the show.
Oh well, this one you have to thank Sista. He was my inspiration.
God, he's the
Can't
worst.
get rid of you two.
Worst person.
All right, so Eduardo, thanks so much for your wonderful segment of Eduardo's Corner. Guys, remember, Netflix.com/Gamebreaker TV. Netflix likes to bring you Eduardo's Corner each and every week, as long as he's got the crazy questions. So, Eduardo, thank you so much. I look forward to what you bring to the table next week.
Okay, see you guys.
All right, see you. All right, while we try and get another caller on the line, let's start over to Twitter. Omikins, Josh, I'm going to direct this at you. This is one of these loaded Blizzard question answers that I'm looking for. Will Hearthstone eventually branch out to other Blizzard games instead of being WoW tied? Have Starcraft, Diablo 3 decks, etc.?
It's possible. I mean, you could say things like, "Oh, well, it wouldn't exactly make sense in canon," but the Warlock is Gul'dan, who's been dead for quite a while, so it already is kind of.
Are we looking at
Gul'dan and Garrosh never would have fought each other. That's actually just impossible.
Are we even looking at Hearthstone being something that could even be considered canon? I mean, it feels like fan service.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like something that it already is so liberal with what's going on inside the Warcraft universe that it doesn't seem too unlikely that they would then branch out into other universes, is basically what I'm saying here. It's already all over the place in the Warcraft universe. I think it'd be possible. It'd be very weird, but I think it'd be possible. I have no idea what decks you'd have for Diablo. I guess there's classes in Diablo still, but yeah, I don't know who the heroes would be. But,
I mean, is this something also with Hearthstone? I mean, we're talking about different decks. Obviously, we look at the expansive level of what you can do with something like Magic or any of these other decks, you know, Yu-Gi-Oh being one of those that's still coming out with crazy decks and creating new monsters and characters. Is Hearthstone one of those games that's going to kind of create their decks, ignoring the fact that maybe that they're going to branch out to other games? Sticking to just World of Warcraft, is Hearthstone going to be one of those games that is a card game that only evolves as the MMO evolves? Like, obviously we have our I don't know how many specific like warrior, mage, etc. characters there are, but like that they've kind of hit all the archetypes. They can't just recreate a whole new deck unless they recreate a whole new class, can they?
Well, they still have Death Knight and Monk decks to add to the game at some point, which they said they'll probably come at some point. And other than that, like they can add more cards all day. Like they can come up with new cards, no problem. Like new minions and stuff to add in. That's not. This is part of what I like so much about deck-based games, is just there's so many directions they can go with stuff. There's so many things they can actually do with the cards. They can come up with entirely new mechanics if they want to. They can do whatever, as long as it still works inside the rule structure of everything else. Then it makes a whole lot of sense. So, and then it'll work, and they can just keep adding cards on. And that's one of the things that keeps people coming back to card games like this is, hey, there's this new thing, there's all new cards. Oh my god, I got to get a few booster packs or something like that. So yeah, no, I think there's lots of room for Hearthstone to grow. Maybe not directly after anything outside of Warcraft, but there's so much room for it to grow inside Warcraft. I don't even know if it needs to go to another franchise.
All right, let's open up the lines and keep the show moving. Caller on the line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us your question. Tell us where you're from. Said that completely mixed up. Ready, go.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but you're getting some feedback.
Yeah, that's good. Anyway, hello there. This is Mohammed from Saudi Arabia, aka Goofy Spartan. So
Saudi Arabia.
I have a question. About Rift going free to play. What do you guys think about Rift going free to play? Is there any chance that WoW might also be free to play in the next expansion? So what do you guys think about that?
I mean, that's a tough one. Obviously, we're sitting in a kind of awkward situation here with Rift. They clearly released Storm Legion, I think hoping to kind of reinvigorate Rift, to bring old players back. And I don't necessarily think it worked out as well as they were expecting to. That's why we're seeing the free-to-play shift. I think that's apparent to everyone who's read and seen this news. I don't know, thoughts on it though. I mean, Josh, do you have any insight or feelings with Rift, or are there or should players, you know, is there something exciting going on in Rift that players should be chomping at the bit to jump back in and go do, or are we just so oversaturated with MMOs now that it's just another one out there?
Well, here's the thing. I honestly have no idea what's been going on in Rift lately, which is probably a good indication of why they decided to go free to play, because people just really aren't paying that much attention to it anymore. I think that game is one that, sure, they held on to the submodel as long as they could. They were really trying to make it work, and if it's not working for them, then if your options are go out of business or go free to play, then sure, go free to play. It's a game that could easily go for, like most MMOs. There's plenty of tried and true ways of taking your game free to play. As long as the model ends up working out well, then it's fine. I think what Rift really, really desperately needs is players. It needs more and more people in the game right now. As to the other question, the thought about WoW going free to play, I don't think that's going to happen for a long, long time. It may happen eventually, but the next expansion or two, probably not. They still have 8.3 million subscribers. That's not something that you say, oh, this isn't enough anymore.
At what point do you think, at what number, and I'm not saying you have to make a prediction when this number will occur, at what number do you think that Blizzard will make the decision to make that shift? Or as you've spoken, because I think you've said before, you could see them doing free-to-play for WoW once Titan hits.
I honestly don't know. I think it has more to do... I think in the event that WoW would go free-to-play, it would have more to do with what's going on around it than the game itself. It would have more to do with like, oh, they want to release Titan, or there's just so many other games on the market right now, etc. Like, I think it's something that it's really, really tough to predict, and it's not really tied to World of Warcraft subscription numbers. It's just at what point do they feel like they can make more, get more people into the game, and turn a better profit off of World of Warcraft as a free-to-play title than they can off of World of Warcraft as a subscription title. I have no idea what those metrics would even be. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. Did you, I have over here in chat that you might have had a second question for us. Do you have that second question?
Yeah, I do. It's about the Diablo Action House, the gold duping. I mean, do you think they are going to move the Action House completely after what happened?
Well, they just got the auction house, if I'm not mistaken, up and restored and going again, correct?
Yeah, but it's kind of ruined the game economy. Like gear right now are like 100 million and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a really, really hard thing for them to recover from. I don't think it's unrecoverable, but it's definitely going to be a pain to actually manage that. And I have the first guess as to what their plans might be to actually solve
What's your first guess?
I don't have.
Oh, I thought you said you have a first guess.
No, I said I haven't the first guess. I have no idea what they could actually do to recover from it.
I mean, this was kind of something that a lot of people were scared and concerned about and mentioned with the Real Money Auction House when they brought it up in the first place. What do you think that this is going to do? Because I don't even know where to begin with what they're going to do to fix it either, because it's one of those things that unfortunately spiraled out of control for them, and it's I mean, where do you go in terms of deleting gold? How do you track that? How do you delete the gold to re-equalize the playing field?
Yeah, and that's why I'm kind of surprised that the auction house is up again already, because it's easy if you can go through and say, okay, well, we're just going to go through and get rid of all of the gold that was duped. We'll immediately take down the auction house. Everybody who duped some gold will immediately go through and take all that out, and then we'll put the auction house back up once that's clear. But if they didn't clear everything before they put the auction house back up, that's kind of, now that gold's just out there in the wild. Like, what do you do about this? How do you even fix this issue? So yeah.
That's a tough one. I mean,
I guess they could look and see who's buying things for 50 billion gold and stuff like that, and be like, you might have duped to actually get to that point.
No, Josh, I earned that. I earned that. I've been playing since the game started with no breaks. Haven't gone to the bathroom. And
it's also actually totally possible, just thinking about this objectively, it's actually totally possible that people are just thinking that there might still be people out there with duped gold that would spend that money on that, so they're listing things at ridiculously high prices on the auction house. It may be that the issue, it may be totally possible that the issue, and again, I'm just guessing here, but it may be that the issue is actually already resolved and people are just sort of fishing for it at this point to see if they can get somebody to slip up and give them a whole bunch of gold.
Yeah. Legitimate gold. All right, let's open up the call. Oh, last caller. Well, let's hang on here before we go to our last caller. Let's start out to a Twitter question real quick. This story came in on Gamebreaker. I actually read it on Gamebreaker's site. So if you guys haven't, if you guys are new viewers, and you haven't checked out Gamebreaker TV, check it out. It's got a whole bunch of awesome video game related news. But this came in from Jay Lopez. He said, now that Square Enix has reported 150 million in losses, do they need Final Fantasy 13 Versus and Kingdom Hearts to survive these hard times? Interesting thing about this, and it's funny because I think a lot of you guys have a lot to say about this. I was more caught up in the comments of this article that you guys were posting than I was the actual article. I mean, I think a lot of people feel there no longer are, like, they could be diehard Final Fantasy fans, they could be diehard Squaresoft fans, but they think that Square has you guys think that Square has really kind of strayed its own course, and over the past couple of years, they seem to have been focusing on franchises that that Square fans don't necessarily care about. You know, they're blaming their failures on Tomb Raider underselling when they expected it to sell 4 million copies in the first month, which, as the article stated, that would be one of the fastest selling video games of all time. Those expectations for that game is unwarranted, and why you're spending that amount of money on a franchise with that kind of expectation, especially when it's Tomb Raider and has been revamped twice in the past 8 years. Come on, set your expectations. Final Fantasy isn't even selling that well anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, I think Square is definitely having some major management problems right now with their money, and that's where those big losses are coming from. I mean, Tomb Raider is an amazing game. I enjoyed it thoroughly the whole way through. It was really, really enjoyable. I beat it in like a day because I just couldn't put it down. Like I could not stop playing Tomb Raider. It was so much fun. I think that I like their expectations were dumb for that game. If they needed to make $4 billion or whatever it was off of they needed to sell 4 billion copies or 4 million. I don't remember what you said just a second ago.
Million.
But if they 4 million, there we go. If they needed to sell 4 million copies in the first weekend to make back their losses on the title,
First month,
excuse me, to make back their losses on the title, then they're crazy. No one should ever put that much money into a title expecting to, like, the fastest selling PC games of all time have not sold that much. Like maybe like a handful of them. Like I guess Diablo 3 sold a whole ton, but still, it's like you don't do that. That's not a thing that you do. Not with an unproven franchise.
Those can't be predicted. Like those cannot be predicted. And I mean, especially, I mean, I don't want to say that Tomb Raider doesn't have its fan base, but I think Square gets lost in the idea and the fandom that people have for their titles like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. And that's the problem that this is ultimately causing, is the fans that are wanting those games are sitting and holding on, and we've been holding on for 5-6 years for one title. For Final Fantasy 13 Versus, we are still waiting, and we might finally hear something about it at E3. Like, that's too long. It's too long, and you're losing fans across the board. Not only because of the way you're releasing the games, but I just think that if you wait, if you're making your fans wait that long for your franchises, you're losing sight of why we loved you so much and what made your game so beautiful and masterful to begin with.
Yeah, I think definitely somewhere along the line, Square sort of got this idea that everything they did was gold, and it's unfortunate for sure. But there really seems to be that sort of really seems to have been that sort of attitude over like, look at what happened with Final Fantasy 14. They were like, well, we're gonna make it this way because this is how players want it, because this is what Square is doing. And it's no guys, come on. And now they're thankfully, I've actually heard good things so far. I obviously haven't played the closed beta yet, but I have heard good things about what's going on in A Realm Reborn. But still, it's something where they're going to have to step back and look at things and say that we've got to figure out how the gaming industry works today, not how it worked when we could crap out a new Final Fantasy and it would be the most amazing thing ever. We've got to look at how, like, they came out with a 13.2, and that sold like crazy.
And they're coming out with a 13.3. 13.3 is coming out before, and I think they're making, and that's the other place where they've strayed. They're too caught up in making spin-offs and sequels instead of doing what made it so interesting was like the reason why Final Fantasy, in my opinion, became the critically acclaimed success that it is because every single one was a new story, was a greater meaning, and then they got caught up in this sequelitis where they just figured, oh well, we have a built-in fan base for this. It's gonna sell like wildfire, and that's not. I mean, I feel like every Final Fantasy fan loves them so much because each one is their own individual, unique, and interesting story. That's why we exist.
Yeah, I'd be down for a brand new Final Fantasy. I'm just not interested in jumping into yet more Final Fantasy 13 at this point.
Yeah, especially when
I think a lot of people would be in the same boat as well.
All right, let's open up to the final caller here and wrap this show up. Caller in a line with Gamebreaker After Dark. Tell us your name. Tell us where you're from. Tell us your question.
Hi, my name's Ryan Scanlon. I'm from Connecticut, and I've got a question about the Lich King.
Ooh, all right.
All right, so everybody's speculating, the next expansion is going to be about the Burning Legion, and well, since Bolvar's been sitting over an Ice Crown for a couple of years, and all the Burning Legion might stir him up a little bit. Maybe have him pledge the Scourge to help fight the Legion.
That'd certainly be interesting.
So maybe having the Lich King come to the aid against the Legion in the fight is what you're saying.
Exactly. I can't think of a better reason lore-wise to have necromancers as a class.
That could certainly be interesting.
What happens with the idea of the lore, though, that, I mean, and it's weird because it's like, obviously, he took over as being Lich King because someone needs to control the Scourge. There can't be someone who's not there, or they would just run rampant.
Yeah, which, by the way, was an extremely thin bit of storyline. I'll go ahead and criticize that a little bit. It's like, oh, as soon as they don't have a leader, they become even more dangerous, said no general ever.
Tell that to Napoleon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, for Bolvar, it's sort of a win-win because either, hey, I helped beat the Legion with the Scourge, or the Scourge gets wiped out by the Legion, and there's less Scourge for him to manage.
I've always kind of wondered what's going to go on there, because what's with that line? I mean, he specifically says the line as he's sealing himself back in ice, tell no one what you saw here and never return. So it's like, okay, he wants to go unknown, and I get it. Maybe he doesn't want people to think that Bolvar is alive, but like, there's clearly still a Lich King out there. That's the way it was, or I guess it is the lore that we've killed the Lich King, and that the Scourge is under control, but we think we've chopped off the head. Is that where it's currently standing, if I'm not mistaken? Anyone?
Sounds about right. Everybody except for the people that were there to kill him. That's what everybody else thinks.
Or anybody who clicked on the monument in the middle of Dalaran. Yeah. But
but that's
I
none
think
of their leaders. That's nobody canon. Nobody knows except us and Tyrael.
No, Tyrael.
Yeah, Tyrael knows.
Funny.
Your joke was not appreciated.
Apparently. Yeah, no, I think it's definitely something they need to come back to at some point. I just don't want to see them do it in a way that's like, oh, also Bolvar's doing stuff, so let's figure out a way to shove him in here. Like, if it makes sense in the storyline of the Burning Legion, that's assuming that the next expansion is Burning Legion focused, which may not even be the case. We may get something else in the interim. Obviously,
come on, Josh, you've got come on. We know we're getting an announcement at BlizzCon. Don't pretend like you haven't seen some stuff in backdoors. You're not under contract yet. Just tell us. Exactly
nothing under backdoors. Like, seriously, I have no idea. But like they would not. Like, I couldn't even talk to the developers while I was there because they were like, nope, can't. No information for you, sir. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I want to see them come back to the Bolvar story at some point. I want to see them come back to the Lich King, and we'll figure out what exactly all of that means that's going on in there. I just don't... I want to see it done proper justice when they do it. I don't want it to be something where they just go, hey, here's a good place to shove Bolvar Fordragon in. No, I want it to be an actual, like... There's got to be a really good reason for it. Maybe they've come up with something, but I don't think that convenience makes a good reason. I guess
Blizzard does such a good job of not just justifying their lore, but doing it properly. And I don't want to necessarily. I think even, I mean, they're doing a better job of presenting it recently. But there's the lore that exists in Warcraft in the RTS games is wonderful. It's great. I think that I mean, look at the movie. The movie was something where I could be wrong. I believe they claimed that it didn't go anywhere because they didn't want to just pull the trigger unless the story was right, unless it fit. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exactly like you were saying, and hopefully they'll still keep it the way that they've been holding true, that I feel that they've done the whole time. Of making sure that when they do something, it's not just for the sake of convenience or to to excite people of like, oh, hey, Lich King is coming back and now we're buddy-buddy. Because I think a lot of people would turn on them if they were to do that. Yeah, no. Long-winded sentence was long-winded.
I agree.
Well, I mean, there's no reason for Bolvar really not to want to help out in the first place, just because he is still, loyal to the Alliance, even though he got turned into the Lich King.
But
I am dead.
There's no reason.
And never return.
There's no reason for him not to help out against Deathwing, but he didn't because he would have felt like he was just there, like in the storyline.
He was frozen in a block of ice. He didn't have enough time to thaw, even though he's filled with fire.
All right. Is that Daniel? This is Daniel, maybe? Is that another caller? No?
You.
All right. We might have lost them. I'm not quite sure. Ryan.
Yep.
Man, I knew that.
Still
I don't
here.
know why. Ryan, thank you so much for your question and calling in. We really, really appreciate it. I think that's going to have to do it for our show today, though. So,
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for calling in, man. Josh Allen, you can follow him right down there at Devolore, Devolore. Be sure to check out all the stuff he does over on tankspot.com for the rest of the month, as well as maybe stick around Tankspot and check out some of the cool stuff they do even after Josh goes off to Blizzard. And if you guys want, also check out Gamebreaker TV, website that you guys are potentially on right now. Follow me over on Twitter at Mike Schaffnitz, as well as follow at Gamebreaker TV. Guys, live call-in show. Gamebreaker After Dark, we do it live every Tuesday night at 9:30 p.m. PDT. And we can't make the show without your calls. So please, 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 first off, thank you to everybody who called in tonight and everybody who calls in the future. But please, if you haven't checked us out live and thought about calling in, check us out live, call in your question, and be a part of the conversation. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you next week.